High Court. Also now joining me on the broadcast are my guests, Sumanth C Raman, who's a political analyst, joins me on CNN News 18. Also joining me is Mr. C Rajashekaran, who's a lawyer. Both my guests, I'd like to thank you for joining me on the broadcast. Sumanth C Raman, I'd first like to begin with you. What do you make of this order that's come out of the Madras High Court and the kind of celebrations that we see outside OPS's residence?
Well, it is definitely a setback for Mr. Edappadi Palaniswamy or EPS, and it's a big win for Mr. OPS. However, how Mr. OPS will capitalize on this victory in the court is going to be very difficult to see, because he has less than 10% of the party, maybe even smaller percentage with him, whereas the bulk of the party is with Mr. EPS. Also, I think the reason for this is Mr. EPS made a huge mistake. The first General Council meeting was called as per procedure with the signatures of both Mr. OPS and EPS. The court only said no new resolutions other than whatever has been already circulated in the agenda must be taken up. But Mr. EPS could have gone ahead with a vote and gone back to the court and said we would have it ratified with the approval of the court as a resolution. They missed that. The second one was unilaterally called by Mr. EPS, and that is the one which has been struck down as not valid by the court. So I think Mr. EPS, has himself to blame partly for having messed up the situation, as it were. But he still commands overwhelming support within the General Council. So even hypothetically, there were to be a General Council meeting in 2 weeks' time, there is very little doubt as to what the result of that meeting would actually be. So, but I'm fairly sure the EPS camp will go to the Supreme Court, and they will definitely go on appeal against this decision. I already heard one of the ministers, former ministers who is with EPS, saying that they are going to appeal this decision.
All right. And Mr. Rajashekaran, what do you make of this verdict by the Madras High Court? How much of a dent will it make in camp EPS?
See, this Madras High Court order has clearly sent a strong message to the cadres of the party. If they are united, they are going to win the elections. If they are going to divide among themselves, definitely it's advantage of opposition, which is the DMK, which is the ruling party in Tamil Nadu. EPS is trying to capture the party. 2,400 and odd General Council members is not the whole party, and the cadres are confused. They don't know how to go about in the next future developments. So this and all put in a nutshell, OPS may capitalize on those points, and he may get the support of cadres, because the original bylaw which speaks about the cadre will decide the General Secretary of the party. Since there is a permanent General Secretary, late Jayalalitha has been declared as the General Secretary, only the coordinator and the joint coordinator are the new set of amendments made in the bylaw of AIADMK. Going by that, whatever the Madras High Court has said, it has reiterated and it has emphasized that that order, that whatever position on 23rd, status quo has to be maintained. And this is a good order in the interest of the party. If they want to fight among themselves, the party is going to divide, and you cannot siphon off anybody in politics, or you cannot underestimate anybody's credentials in politics. Because EPS was nobody just 4 years back. Now he claims to be somebody. But OPS was really somebody anointed with the blessings of Jayalalitha, is now nobody as per the claims of EPS faction. So anything may happen, anything may turn around, and it may favor OPS also. We cannot, the cadres mindset cannot be judged or cannot be, rightly said, because they may change their opinion, they may go behind the OPS also.
Right.
So we have to wait and watch how they develop in the future.
So, but I'd like to bring you in here. What are the options before the EPS camp now? And considering there is going to be obviously people jumping ship, because that's a common sentiment on the ground, and will OPS get that benefit where he played that card, or probably, and this is what his detractors really have to say, that it's because of his scars that he got the sour end of the bargain? Do you think all this will favor OPS, and how will the EPS cadre really get its flock together? How do they keep it together?
Yeah, I don't think that this will lead to an exodus, provided the EPS camp very quickly goes on appeal. And you see, now there is a bit of a problem. Of course, we'll have to go through the judgment in detail. But now, essentially, the crux of the judgment is General Council meeting has to be called jointly by the coordinator and the co-coordinator.
Yes.
Now, technically, according to EPS, Mr. OPS is no longer in the party. So, let alone be co-coordinator. The logical way of dealing with it, which, subject to egos being buried, is for both of them to call a meeting and tell the cadre, you decide who do you want as the general secretary. But clearly the odds are stacked against Mr. OPS. So now that he's won this court battle, what does he do next is still a big question. As long as he's not able to attract the majority of the party cadre towards him to feel confident enough of jointly convening this general council meeting and saying, let us contest and see who comes out triumphant in the contest for general secretary. The point is, he doesn't have the numbers right now. So what does he do? He can't go ahead and if hypothetically Mr. EPS says tomorrow, let's call a general council meeting again, Mr. OPS will be voted out there. So now what does he do? He tries to drag out more things to court, buys time to get more people across to his side. So though it is a victory for OPS in court today, it is, it sort of leaves him also in a limbo as to what to do next.
Mr. Rajashekaran, the court has also said, and like Sumanth was rightly mentioning, if at all they are not able to come to a consensus, that is 1/5 of the General Council members, if they do not come together, then the court has also asked for an appointment of a commission. Now, how do things stand over there when it comes to that development coming out of the court?
See, whatever Suman says is applicable to Jayalalitha and MGR, not to EPS and OPS. Everybody has been purchased by EPS. General Council members, that's what sources confirm before and now also, that EPS had given a huge amount to literally purchase the votes of General Council members, which were in 2,300 or 2,200. I'm not sure about the number. So again, horse trading will start. And whoever pays money to the General Council, now the beneficiary will be the 2,500 General Council members, and they will take a stand. And the original bylaw, which says the General Secretary of the party has to be elected by the cadre of the party. So going by that, the General Council members cannot decide the fate of the party's position or the General Secretary position. So whatever the court has said is status quo, the coordinator and the joint coordinator. So that will prevail. The General Council comes into force only for the election of General Secretary elections, which it has been nullified by the court today. And this order has clearly said, whatever has happened subsequent to 23rd stands cancelled. So it's very clear. The order is very clear. So I don't know the literal order of...
So Suman, would you like to respond to this, considering the ouster of OPS has been nullified by the court today? So he gets back.
So OPS is technically, as of this moment, the coordinator, and Mr. EPS is the co-coordinator. Simplest thing to do, jointly call a General Council meeting at 2 weeks' notice, and at that meeting say that the General Secretary will be decided by the all the members. By the no, 1 second, sir. 1 second. Can I finish?
Let him respond. Let him respond.
And then have a contest to see who will win. Now, that is the logical way. In fact, Mr. EPS at that General Council meeting, which has now been called invalid, actually said that elections will be held in the next 3 months, and he's only an interim General Secretary. So logically, the party needs to elect a leader. And since the two leaders can't agree to get along together, the best way is to throw it to the members of the party, the party cadre, who actually vote, not just the General Council members. The party cadre. The General Council will pass a resolution saying that elections will be held to the post of General Secretary in the next 3 months. End of story. The matter ends very smoothly. Whoever wins takes charge of the party. But I'm not sure Mr. OPS will be happy to do that, simply because he knows he doesn't have the numbers at this stage. So there's no way that he will agree to an election, which he's almost certain at this point of time at least to lose.